So this is a portable voltage eliminator that I had made. Okay, this particular thing is a voltage eliminator. So basically, I it has a bunch of lithium ion batteries inside, and there's a small piece of circuitry which helps me get a certain voltage output. Can you see? It says 5 volts 0 amps. So it's giving me a 5-volt output. I can I'll use it to power my circuit. So let me just connect the two wires. So this is the ground wire, and this is the positive rail. So I mean we're gonna discuss this. So let me just keep this circuit on the side for the moment, and let us first discuss, I mean, the motivation for all of this. So often you need to do what is known as switching. So switching, is it in focus?
Yes, it's fine.
So what do you understand by switching? Everyone does it every day. Okay. So switching is basically you have a certain appliance. Appliance. So appliance is a load, and you have a, if it's a DC appliance, then you have two lines. One is the ground line, and one is the power line. So you simply have a switch like this, and this is connected to say 12 volts. So this is a very simple switch. So this is a SPST switch, single pole, single throw switch. So when you press on the switch, it will connect the appliance to the circuit. So very simple. But see, this kind of mechanical switching, when you're making mechatronics devices, you don't really want to go and actually toggle switches all the time. Of course, you will have some main switch and all this, but you want to have switching done by means of uh, electronic circuitry. You don't want to switch it, or you want to say switch with the help of a microcontroller like an Arduino. An Arduino is simply able to give you a 5 volt 20 milliampere output. Okay, you don't have a lot of current going on, so 20 milliampere is maybe only sufficient to drive a few LEDs. You cannot drive like big appliances like big motors or anything. So you need to find out a way of of performing switching with the help of say a microcontroller. In your DIY lab you might have done this kind of thing. So you might have used say a digital out to switch LEDs. Do you recall this? Have you done something like this?
Yes, sir.
So it is not always possible for you to drive big loads. So you need to find a way of somehow taking that 5 volt low ampere source and to drive some and to switch a big appliance. So this is where we are getting it. So the way to do it is to use a transistor. Okay, the way to do that is by means of a transistor, and there are different kinds of transistors. So there is a NPN transistor. I mean, so in transistors there are various kinds. So there are FETs, field effect transistors. There are BJTs. So BJT stands for bipolar junction transistor. There are MOSFETs. So MOSFET stands for metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. Okay. So there are various kinds of transistors, but the one that we're going to focus right now is the BJT. So it's the BJT. So BJT, bipolar junction transistor, and BJTs have two kinds. One is the NPN and one is the PNP. So NPN transistor, it's basically a solid state device in which you have three layers. One is N doped, one is P doped, and one is again N doped. Whereas a PNP is the reverse, it's P N P, and both of them have their own sets of uses. So let us look at the different parts of a transistor. So the transistor under consideration over here, so this is the transistor, this particular black thing. This particular black jelly bean that you see over here, are you able to see?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
This is a transistor, and the transistor in question is the BC547 NPN transistor. So transistor has three legs. Okay. Transistor has three legs. Three legs are termed as collector, base, and emitter. Okay, there are three legs: the collector, base, and emitter. And so let me just look up the data sheet of a BC547 and tell you how to identify the different legs. So typically each manufacturer does tell in their data sheet what it is. So let me quickly share my screen so as to avoid me drawing that. Uh, yeah. So I hope you are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir.
So this is how you identify the BC547. So the BC547 has overall a cylindrical shape, but one of the ends is flat. So if you're looking at the flat side, if you're looking at the flat side, the pins are labeled like this: 1, 2, 3. One is the emitter, 2 is the base, and 3 is the collector. Okay, if you're looking at the flat side, one is the base, then you have one is the emitter, 2 is the base, and 3 is the collector. Okay, so let me stop sharing. So you draw the transistor like this. So you have the base, collector, and emitter. So this is for an NPN transistor. The corresponding diagram for a PNP transistor is something like this. So this is the emitter, this is the base, and this is the collector. Okay, and the conjugate. So this is the BC547, which is the NPN. So let me just show you. I think it is the BC557. The BC557 is a PNP, and the same thing. I mean, let me just quickly share my screen. So nothing much different about it. It's just how the emitter and everything changes. Okay. So are you able to see this? This is exactly what I have drawn in the notebook as well. Okay. So BC557 is the PNP transistor, whereas BC547 is the NPN transistor. I mean, there are many transistors. It's not like you must use BC547 and all this, but they are one of the most popular ones out there. There are other popular ones like the 2N2222 or the 2N3055. So there are many transistors, each with a different characteristic. Now if we go into the data sheet, so let's just go into the data sheet. Okay, this is BC557, I just want BC547. So let's go into the data sheet. So if you see that this particular BC547 is made by Fairchild Semiconductor, and you have all these different parameters like the absolute maximum ratings. So across the collector emitter, you can apply a maximum of 45 volts. So this data sheet contains 546, 547, 550, 548, 549, a bunch of NPN transistors. It is there, but we are more interested in the collector emitter voltage. So for BC547, the maximum collector emitter voltage is 45 volts, meaning that across the collector and emitter, you cannot apply more than 45 volts. And the second most important thing is the emitter base voltage. So the emitter base voltage for the BC547 must not exceed 6 volts. If it exceeds, you will get magic smoke. I mean, don't don't tell in your Vivas that it is magic smoke. It is just the component burning out. Okay. I mean, we jokingly say it's magic smoke. It can dissipate through the collector a maximum power of 500 milliwatts. So as you can imagine, it's not going to give you a lot of current. So each transistor has a very important parameter which is called as the HFE. And the old multimeter that I spoke about, it could give you, given a transistor, it would tell how much DC current gain it has. So DC current gain, what do we mean by DC current gain? We will come to this in a while. So HFE is called as the DC current gain. Okay, we will. So typically the values, I mean the minimum value is 110, the maximum value is 800. So that's the gain. Okay, we will see that. I mean, you will obviously learn this in analog electronics. I mean, in your basic electronics course. But I will just give you working knowledge so that we can get past these things today. Okay. So the on voltage, the base emitter, that is the voltage that you must apply so that you can have the transistor functioning. So you must apply a 700 millivolt between the base and emitter. Okay, the other things are not that important at this juncture, but you have various things such as the output capacitance, the input capacitance, the current gain bandwidth product. So these are important when you're using the transistor as an amplifier. So you can use a transistor as an amplifier. So you will need to know those. So HFE, we've seen it varies from 110 to 800. It all depends on the item. And then you have the static characteristic curves, and we will not go into this given that you have not done the theory yet. But keeping all this in mind, whenever you do the theory, you should always come back to the data sheet, because theory is one thing, looking at the data sheet and trying to understand what the data sheet says is another thing. Okay, so then you have simply the CAD drawing and nothing else. Okay, it just says that is very popular. I mean, this transistor is very popular. So let me stop sharing my screen and let us go to this. So we will focus more on the NPN type, and I will tell you how a PNP works, but I did not have a PNP ready with me at this juncture. Uh, but I have made a edge bridge circuit which does make use of a NPN and PNP pair. So that will be there in a later lab, not today. Okay, so in this, the gain is the output current, that is the emitter current, whatever the output current is to the input current. So a gain of say 100 means that if the base current, so if the HFE is equal to 100, it means that the base current, if it is 100 milliampere or microampere, if the base is say 1 microampere, then the emitter current will be equal to 100 times 1 microampere. So this is how it works as a current amplifier. it sort of amplifies the current going into the base. So now you can imagine that when you have an Arduino, you can feed the low amount of current that an Arduino can give into the base, and you can get an amplified current through the collector emitter line. Okay, so very important to know what HFE is. But here we are not so worried about using using a transistor as an amplifier. We are more concerned about how to use this particular BC547, that is an NPN transistor. We are more interested to use it as a switch. So what happens is when the base current is much higher than 1 microampere, when the base current is very high, suppose the base current becomes 1 milliampere. Suppose the base current becomes 1 milliampere, then the current through the emitter you expect it to be 100 milliampere because the HFE is 100. Actually, the HFE for this is as high as 800. It is not even 100. It is as high as 800. So now suppose the base current I increase further. Suppose I give a 5 milliampere input. Suppose I were to give a 5 milliampere input, then what will happen? Should I get how much current should I get at the output? If the HFE is 100, I will get
So 500 milliampere.
yeah, so almost half an ampere, right? So you all agree with me that you should be able to obtain almost half an ampere. So let us go back to the data sheet. Let us go back to the data sheet and let us see whether that is possible even. So the maximum collector current, okay, it's 100 milliampere. Okay, the maximum collector current is only 100 milliampere. So if you look at the collector current, so this is the collector current. You remember the Kirchhoff's law, right? So here 5 milliampere is going, here 500 milliampere is coming. So how much will be the emitter current? It will be 505.
490.
No, it will be added. So both this current is also coming in, this current is also coming in. So this will be an addition of these two currents. The current leaving will be an addition of these two currents, right? So it will be
Yes.
505. So that much amount of current is not allowed. Only 100 milliampere is allowed. So the transistor will not be able to carry that much amount of current. So what it will do is it will modify the collector emitter voltage accordingly so that you will get saturated only at 100 milliampere. Okay, so we say in that particular situation, we say that the transistor has been driven to saturation. And when the transistor has been driven to saturation, then we can use the transistor as a switch. Meaning, let me redraw.
Sir, between which 2 points are we connecting the battery?
I will tell that. For now, just imagine that the collector is always at a higher voltage than the emitter. The base is also at a higher voltage than the emitter. Okay, you must have two power sources actually. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, you have this. Now suppose you have no base current going into the system. You have no base current. So if you have no base current, you will have no current flow between the collector and emitter. If you have no base current, there is nothing to amplify, right? So you will have no current, and this is said to be off condition. Okay, then you say that the transistor is in a off condition. But when you drive the device into saturation, it's like VCE will become minimum and you are allowing current to go freely from the collector to emitter. So the base, when it is driven to, so base is like one of those taps. So you have a water line and you have a valve. If there is nothing going into the base, then you will get no output from collector emitter. So the collector emitter line is what is more important to us. But when you give some current into the base, it will allow some current to go. And when you completely open the valve, meaning when you drive the transistor into saturation, you will get the maximum amount of current possible through the collector emitter line. Is this, so far this working knowledge, is it enough? Is it understandable to everyone?
Sir, why there is no current flowing from collector to emitter when the base is when the current is not flowing from base?
So when the current is not flowing through base, so when the base current is 0, now how much is the emitter current going to be? It's going to be HFE multiplied by 0. So that will be also be 0. Is that okay?
Yes, sir, but still
So
there
that,
the positive potential exists
no, no,
at
no, no. So
collector.
that is why these 3 layers are required. Because of that P junction in between, because of that P junction only, you are not directly getting a current between the collector and emitter even when the base is not driven. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So let me now complete the circuit. So now I will connect a load. I will connect it to 12 volts, right? And so now I need to drive a current through the base as well. So how will I do that? I will simply connect another load and another voltage source over here. So this resistor is known as the base resistor, and this resistor is the load resistor. And this emitter is connected to ground. Okay. Now let us analyze the base emitter line first. Let us analyze the base emitter line. How much current actually goes to the base emitter line? So someone says, okay, what is IB? How do you figure out what IB is? Anyone?
Sir, 12
Sir,
volt
it's
upon RB.
12 upon RB.
sir,
So
12 minus VB on divided by RB.
very good. So in reality, so let us go step by step. Those of you who did say 12 upon RB, that is correct. If everything were to be super ideal. But see, the base emitter line also has a forward voltage drop. And that forward voltage drop, as correctly mentioned by someone, is the VBE on. And if you take a look at the data sheet, so let's go back to the data sheet. So the VBE on was the base emitter on voltage, and it is maximum of 700 millivolts. Okay, so it means that in going from the base to the emitter, you must have a voltage drop of 700 millivolts. So in reality the current will be 12 minus VBE on, and VBE on in this particular case is 0.7 divided by RB. Okay. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now how do I figure out? How do I figure out that I need to drive this transistor into saturation? So what should be the base current? What should be the base current in order to drive the transistor into saturation? Obviously, you have to look at the data sheet, blah blah blah. But there is a very easy way to go about it. Now we just saw that the maximum collector current was 100 milliampere. So the maximum collector current is 100 milliampere. This is the maximum collector current. Now if I were to assume that the gain, that the HFE, how much should I choose the HFE? Should I choose the higher value or should I choose the lower value? If I choose a gain of almost 800, I will get a very small base current. If I choose a HFE of 100, I will get a very conservative estimate of uh, the base current. So if I choose HFE to be 100 and if I choose it to be 800, so if I choose the HFE to be 100, what will be the base current if the collector current is 100 milliampere? So I think I might
1
have
milliampere.
1 milliampere.
1 milliampere. So I think I told the HFE incorrectly. It is the collector current to the base current. Okay. I might have told it as the emitter current, but collector current and emitter current are not that different because the gain is so high. Okay, so as you have correctly pointed out, if the HFE is assumed to be 100, then the base current will be 1 milliampere. And if I choose it as 800, if I choose the gain to be 800, then what will I get? Do you have a calculator ready?
0.125.
So
0.
0.25.
0.125.
0.25. Yes,
0.125.
So 0.125
Yes.
milliampere. So now, which gain should I choose? I should obviously choose the lower gain so that I quickly get a bigger value or rather lower value of resistance. Okay. So now what you should do as a home task, figure out what the resistance should be in each of this case. So okay, tell me, you have the calculator ready with you. So if the current is going to be 1 milliampere through the base, what will be the value of the base resistance? See, it's simple. It is current equal to
So
11.3 divided by
11.3K.
R. Hmm? 11.3K.
11.3K.
And if I choose it as 0.125 milliampere, then
So 90.4K.
90.4K. So I should always choose this lower value of resistance so that the base current is always high. No. I think, yeah, I should choose the lower value. So the lower value is this 11.3K. If I choose the lower value, I am always sure that the current will be high. And I want the base current to be high, but not super high. If the base current is super high, then this will burn out. There will be a lot of heat dissipated. So I must choose 11.3 kilo ohm or something lower than this. Okay, I must choose a base resistance of something lower than this in order for the circuit to work properly. Is this logic okay to everyone? Hello.
Yes, sir.
So now
Sir,
let
but
me.
if you choose lower than 11.3K, won't it exceed the
No,
values?
it will maybe go to 5 milliampere, and that is still acceptable.
Sir, but I have a doubt. Like,
But
if
in
we
that case,
go with,
One by one, one by one.
excuse me, sir, if I have a doubt. Like, if we go with the higher HFE, like 800 value, so
Hmm.
then we would need to have we would go with less voltage. Like, we would have to apply less voltage, like less
Yes.
than 12 volt, and we will easily get again saturation and easily. So we could go with the either way, I guess.
Yes. So, see, I'm just giving you some thumb rules how to go about it. And these are by no means exact. In order to exactly get those values, you must look at the transistor characteristic curves. I'm just giving you a thumb rule, sort of. Basically, you need this current to be in the range of 5 milliamperes. Okay. You need the current to be more than this 1 milliampere for it to be saturated, basically. When you have a conservative estimate of HFE, and the maximum collector current is 100 milliampere, you need to ensure that the current is more than 1 milliampere, because at 1 milliampere you are sort of just in the active region of the transformer. So at 1 milliampere you will get the maximum current that the collector can handle, that is 100 milliampere. Yes, is the logic clear?
Yes, thanks.
All right. So the base resistance has to be something in the range of this kilo ohm. So let me check. Let us check what value have I actually chosen. So I hope you are able to see the circuit. So this is the base resistance. This is the base resistance. So let us see. So it says 9.6 kilo ohm. So I've chosen it as 9.6 kilo ohm. So it should come in the 20k range as well. Yeah, 9.72 kilo ohm. This is the value of the resistance that I have used in the base. Okay, so it's going from a positive rail. I mean, I don't know if this is visible properly or not. So look, I have two wires like this. I have two wires like this. Okay, one of them is red, one of them is black. The red one is going into the positive rail of the breadboard. The red one is going into the positive rail of the breadboard, and it has been tapped to the switch. The positive 12 volts is going to the switch, and when the switch is pressed, it is transferring this 12 volt to this resistor. Via this resistor, it is going into the base. It is going into the base of the transistor. Okay, and the base resistance is how much? 9.7 kilo ohm. So let us draw it. Whatever we have connected, let us draw it. So far, this is what we have seen. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let us complete the entire picture. Now, let us. So let me just quickly see the pinout. So this is the emitter. This is the emitter. This middle one is the base, and the top one is the collector. So what all are connected to the collector? So in the collector line, we have a resistor and a LED, and that is hooked up to 12 volts. Okay, so just follow this 12 volt line. It is going from 12 volt to the LED. In the forward bias condition, the LED is going to drop something like 1 volt. Then it is going to the resistor. Then the resistor is going into the collector. Okay. This particular leftmost leg is the collector. Forget about this red LED and the relay. This is a relay, so forget about them right now. And the emitter is simply connected to ground. So this green wire, are you able to see the green wire?
Yes, sir.
So the rightmost leg is the emitter, and the emitter is simply grounded because this black line is extending throughout, and this black wire is going to be the ground. So the emitter is simply grounded. So let us draw that. So what is connected? So we have the 12 volt line. We have an LED. We have the LED, then a resistor which is connected to the collector, and the emitter is simply grounded. And the same 12 volt line is being used. Okay. Now what is the value of the resistor? Let's quickly find out. Let us quickly determine the value of the resistor. The resistor says 324 ohms. Okay, it's only 324 ohms. Fine. I mean, it's not a question of only 324 ohms. It's question of why have I used 324 ohms. That is more important. So let's do it. So this is 320 ohm. 320 ohm. So when the transistor is in saturation, what will be the current going through the collector emitter line? What are the loads we have? We have a LED, we have a resistor, and nothing else. So the current through the collector will be 12 minus whatever this is going to drop. So the LED maybe drops 1 volt. So LED and diode, so they have a forward voltage drop. LED is nothing but a light emitting diode. It's like a diode which emits light. Okay, so it drops almost around 1 volt. And VCE, so how much is VCE going to be? So from the data sheet, let me just quickly open the data sheet. So VCE saturation is coming out to be 250 millivolts, so minus 0.25 divided by 320. So what is the current? Can anyone do this calculation? This is going to be 11 minus 0.25, so this is 10.75 over 320 ohms. So what is the current?
It's
So
0.0.
33.5
0.0335.
33.5 milliampere.
So it's 33.5 milliampere. Okay, this is what you think would go if VCE were to be 0.25, but VCE will come out to be something higher, because what is the base current going to be at this juncture? What is the base current? What is the base current?
So 1.16 milliampere.
1.16 milliampere.
Yes, sir.
So if HFE were to be 800, if HFE were to be 800, then how much collector current would you expect? 800 times this, right? So what is 800 times this?
So 928.
0.93.
920 milliamp.
931.
But we think based on the VCE saturation, that is 0.25 volts, we would get 33 milliampere. But the transistor is trying to take it all the way to 920 milliampere. But obviously it means that we are in saturation. Once we are in saturation, obviously VCE would have to be adjusted so that the current can be something less than 100 milliampere. You get the logic over here? This current cannot be going on, so this VCE saturation that we had assumed was also incorrect. So let's say that the current is 100 milliampere. So 100 milliampere is equal to 12 minus 1 minus VCE divided by 320. Now this will give us an estimate of how much VCE will be. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? We had assumed over here VCE to be 0.25, but it cannot be the case. Current cannot be 920 milliampere because only 100 milliampere can be driven through this transistor CE line. So it's 0.1 times 320 is equal to 11 minus VCE. So what does VCE come out to be? VCE comes out to be negative. So also this cannot hold true. So when you get this kind of inconsistent values, right, it means that you are in saturation. VCE cannot go negative. So let's turn on everything and we will simply measure what VCE is going to be. Okay, so let me connect the power supply. So basically this resistor over here is just the current limiting resistor, so that even if CE line gets shorted, what it means is when VCE would be 0, when VCE would be absolutely 0, okay, when VCE would be absolutely 0, what will happen? How much current would go through the line? I would be 12 minus 1 divided by 320. So how many milliamperes does this come out to be? This is when VCE equal to 0.
So 34.
34 milliamperes. And how much current can a LED take? Max current to white LED. So it says 20 milliampere max. So ideally I should have chosen it to be a larger value. Ideally I should have chosen this to be slightly larger, but I had something at hand, so I simply used it. Okay, nothing, no, it won't damage it immediately. At least it will maybe get damaged over several months of continuous usage, but right now don't worry about it. So let's hook this up. So let's hook it up. Are you able to see what I'm doing on table? Yeah. So I'm giving the positive to the positive, and I'm giving the negative to the negative. So the black one, and I will give it 12 volts, maybe 10 volts input. So you see the input, and you see the input 10 volts.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So now when we press on the switch, you get the white LED. You see?
Yes, sir.
So what are we doing over here? I mean it's not a philosophical question. Literally, what are we doing over here? So let me just bypass the switch so that we don't need to press on the switch to activate the base. The switch is only there to activate the base. So I have now bypassed the switch. So now we can measure the collector emitter voltage. Okay, what happened? Oh, the line got disconnected.
Sir, what is the purpose of that relay? Is that a relay?
Yes, I want to extend the relay also. Nothing else. One
No, no.
circuit only I tried to make it so that I don't need to use another breadboard, nothing else. So we're gonna go to voltage. We're gonna go to 20 volts and we will see what the collector emitter. So it says 0.1 volt. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's go down a level. If it's, yeah, so it's 112 millivolts. So now can you do the calculation? Now can you do the calculation and tell me how much should be the collector current? So
So
it's
I think,
Acha, let us also look at what the voltage drop is across the LED also. We need exact numbers, right? We need exact numbers. Overload, okay. Is it more than 2 volts? So the LED is dropping 3.24 volts. Are you able to see that?
yes, sir.
Okay, so now do your thing. Do the calculation.
So it gets up to 34.025 milliampere.
Coming out to be 30?
4.025 milliampere.
No, how?
Sir, 27.0 milliampere.
No, no, no.
Yeah, 23.
Let's do it. I mean, why are people getting different answers? So it's
27.025.
12 minus V diode. So how much is V diode?
1.12.
Minus 1. No, V diode was not, it was 3.24, right?
Sir, but here we took
What is the
voltage
ATD?
as 10. No? So why are you
Oh, it
taking
was
there
10.
12?
Okay, yeah, my bad. So it is 10 minus 3.24. Minus 10 minus 3.24 minus
VC
BC. So how much was BC?
1.1.
0.112.
So 320. So how much do we get?
So 20.7.
20 milliampere. So that is acceptable for LED. Okay? That is acceptable for an LED. Okay, very good. So now you know how to use. So what I did was with this 12 volt line, I just connected a switch. And when I press the switch, the base is in circuit. See, the 12 volt line, is always connected to the LED line. This is the 12 volt line. It's always connected to the LED with the resistor, but it's connected across the collector emitter. Only when I press the switch, okay, what's going on? Is something loose? Yeah, there was a loose connection. So that's the risk you have when you're using breadboards. So it's always connected. Only when I actuate the base does the collector emitter line also get conducting. Is that okay? So that is why it can be used as a switch. Is it fine? Has everyone understood?
So can you repeat it again?
I have just connected a switch between the base, between the power supply and the base. This is the switch between the power supply, that is the 12 volt, and the base, right? And there is a base resistor so that it limits the amount of current that can go into the base. Now, when I press the base switch, only then the collector emitter line is getting connected. Otherwise, it does not get connected. So this collector emitter acts as an open circuit. The collector emitter is acting as an open circuit when the base has no current. It is only when the base has a certain amount of current that we are driving the transistor into saturation. And then we can connect this circuit, and that is why the LED glows. That is why we can use a transistor as a switch. Now is it okay?
Yes.
So now you can imagine that instead of using this 12 volt line, instead of using this 12 volt and this base resistor, you can use a different base resistor and drive it using an Arduino as well. So the Arduino will give you a 5 volt 20 milliampere. 20 milliampere is more than sufficient. We are only using some milliamperes to drive the base. So 5 volt, you can now figure out what the value of the resistance should be to drive the base using an Arduino. So the Arduino, when you put the pin digital high, then this transistor will be driven. When you put the pin as digital low, then this will become grounded. Then it will switch off. That is how you can use it to switch heavy amperes. So this is not really switching a lot of amperes because your maximum you're switching some 30 milliamperes over here. You may say that okay, that's not a lot of current, but there are certain transistors which can drive a lot of current. They are not limited to this 100 milliampere. This BC547 is limited to 100 milliampere. There's entire Darlington set of transistors which can drive several amperes, no problem. It can drive 5 amperes, 6 amperes. And the connection is very similar. It's just that their gain values are much larger. So you need a even lower base current to turn on the device. Okay, everyone is fine with this? Now let's go to the relay. So obviously, when I am pressing this switch, this relay is also getting actuated, as you can hear. Okay, you can probably not see it, but you can hear. So it means that I can use the transistor to drive even larger loads. In fact, I can do AC mains switching. What I mean is, you have the base, you have the emitter. So over here you have the 12-volt line and the relay coil. So the relay coil is then connected. I mean, it transfers it to the secondary. It transfers it to the secondary, and on the secondary you can possibly switch a lot of current. So you know how a relay works, how a relay looks like. How does a relay work? Anyone? I mean, if you don't know, we can discuss about it.
Yes, sir.
You might have studied it in your class 8 or something. No?
No, sir. Like, I think it's not taught in CBSE.
Okay. But you might have learned about this electric bells and all, right?
So like relay switches, what I have heard about it, like they are just switches which work on some high voltage or low
No, no, no,
voltage.
no,
When
no, 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 no. I will show you how a relay works. But okay, for you, for right now, it's like you have three terminals. One of the terminal is always closed, like this. So this terminal is said to be normally closed. This terminal is called as normally open, meaning when the relay coil is not energized, if you make a connection between this, suppose you have a lamp. So you have a lamp and the lamp is connected like this, and this goes to mains.
so your video is lagging.
Now you can see.
Yes, sir. Can see it.
So you have mains and you have a lamp, right? When the relay is not energized, this normally closed connection will make the lamp glow. When the relay primary, so the relay has a primary coil. When the relay primary coil, so listen to this will be there on the tests, okay? When the relay primary coils are energized, then this connection between this terminal, which is called as the common terminal, this will go from this terminal to this terminal. It will be attracted magnetically and it will go from this NC to this NO. So what will happen? The circuit has broken, hasn't it? So this lamp will stop glowing. Similarly, you have the relay coil. If you make the connection of the lamp between, so this is the normally closed line. So if you make it, if you make the connection between the normally open and the lamp and AC mains, what will happen is when the relay coil is not energized, the lamp is in open circuit. But when you energize the relay coil, the COM and the normally open, they will get connected. The arm of the relay will swing from right to left and the lamp will start glowing. Is that clear what I just mentioned?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
now the whole point is, how do I drive the primary coil of the relay? I can simply use an Arduino. I can drive the base, which will switch on the circuit, so the primary gets energized, that pulls the relay and the lamp gets switched on. Okay, this is the entire unit, this is the entire relay. Make sure this is clear. I mean, very simple thing, but everyone must know.
So, sir, there are
So,
four connecting points in a relay.
There are more than four. Two for the primary, three for the NONC common.
sir, so relay simply acts like a switch, but in electronic way.
Relay is an electromechanical switch. It's an electromechanical switch, not electronic switch. Electronic switching is transistor.
So basically it's a mechanical switch which is operated using electrical means. Is that
By electromagnetic means.
So, is it like just like MCB works? It's similar functioning.
No, not quite. Not quite. Let me
So,
show you.
but
Let me
in
show you.
that also like magnet, like it retracts the and like it breaks the switch when the magnet loses.
No, something else happens, but let me show you. Let me show you the different parts of a relay. Can you see this? Is it in focus?
Yes, sir. We can see this.
Yes, sir.
So let us see. You have the primary coil. This is the primary coil. Let me switch off the circuit. So you have the primary coil, see? Then I have connected the two primaries in the collector line. I will tell you why this LED is over here. I will tell you more about this LED later. It is not just to indicate whether something is on or off. So you have connected the relay primary as shown. I've basically connected these two across the power supply. So this purple wire is going to the 12-volt line and the orange line is going into the collector. So purple wire is this one, this is the purple line, and this is the orange one which is going into the collector. Is the connection at least clear? This is the relay primary that I've connected.
Yes, sir.
Now there are three connections on each side. If you look at this, there are three connections on each side, and you don't forget about this lower connection. They are the just mirror connections. They are just mirrored connections. Now look, there are three tabs. One is this tab, one is the middle tab, and one is the left tab. Can you see the three tabs? One is the right tab, center tab, left tab. Can you see those?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Now, which one is the normally closed? The middle is the common pin, and the right one is shorted. The spring action of the middle tab is such that the middle tab and the right tab are always shorted. I can show that using a multimeter. You don't need to see it because the sound will come. Okay, so they are shorted. Meanwhile, the center and the left tab will be open. See, they are open. I see here no sound. Do you understand? Now I will turn it on and off, and you will see the tab in motion. So I've turned on the power, and now look at the tab. You see? Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
The
Yes,
middle
sir.
tab gets attracted to the leftmost tab. Can you see it?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
So that's how a relay works. So this coil is energizing the leftmost tab to pull the middle leaf towards itself. That is how this electromagnetic, we call it an electromagnetic switch. Is it okay?
Sir, since the distance between the terminals is very small in the
Hmm.
relay, like wouldn't there be arcing if we drive very heavy loads, like with very high voltages?
There will be arcing if you use very high voltages. So each relay, if you look at this side, it is said that what all can you drive. So you can drive mains like 220 220 240 volts at 5 amperes, or you can drive DC loads of 30 volt DC 5 amperes. So they have been rated as per this. What you just mentioned, that that arcing and the point sparking, that actually decides the ratings of the relay contacts. Yes,
Okay, sir, got it.
that is correct. What you mentioned is correct. So, and if you see the schematic over here, are you able to see the schematic? I don't know. Above Kyoto. Is it visible by chance?
It's very hazy due to the low resolution of the camera, I think.
But the camera is 1080p, so maybe the transmitting business is happening at a lower resolution. So anyway, it shows the primary, then it shows the normally closed contact, and it shows the normally open contact. Basically, that's what it shows. Okay, so that's how relay switching happens. Now you may be wondering, why is there an LED? I mean, of all the things there could be in the circuit, why is there an LED? So let me just remove the white LED because it's very distracting. So now, so each time, let me switch off the light. Each time I will operate this, you look at the red LED. So as the relay is on now, when I let it go, you saw the LED flashing? On, off, on, off, on, off. Did you observe the LED flashing? On, off, on, off. Every time I let the switch go, so the switch is basically to control the base current. So each time I let the base current off, you will see this LED flashing. So why is there that flashing?
Sir, actually, the circuit is detecting the change of usually current, I guess. As
Very
soon as
close, but no cigar. But
Is it like a flyback diode or something?
it is a snubber diode, so that is the point I was getting to. But this Chirag Gupta, you were close, but I will tell you the physics of it, and you might have done it in your. So I switched off the circuit for now, and I will try to show it to you on an oscilloscope as well. That flyback effect. So let me just go to the notebook. How much time do we have? We are out of time, but can you spare some 15 minutes? Do you have another class now, or you can
no,
spare?
sir, we're free.
Okay, okay. So look, say we focus on the primary of the coil of this. So you have the coil, something going, eventually it goes to ground and 12 volts. So when current is flowing through this, okay, current is flowing through this, and suddenly you switch it off. So when you switch it off, meaning there is no connection over here. So this inductor, this coil is like an inductor, right? So this inductor will keep that whatever energy is stored in that inductor, it will want to push it out. The magnetic field is collapsing. Okay, so in order to keep driving the current in this direction, there is no circuit over here. Either it can jump across this. So jumping across this would be tantamount to jumping across the collector emitter, and it would damage the transistor. This can happen when the spike is too large, when all the energy is dumped across a certain gap. You will have an arcing. Where have you seen such kind of an arcing? Everyone has seen it. Everyone. This inductor arcing, everyone has seen it. Where have you seen it? Everyone amongst you have seen it.
On motherboards.
No, motherboards, not everyone is gonna see it. So in those old fluorescent tube lights, There is a big choke coil, and suddenly when the bimetallic strip lets the choke go, all the energy in the inductor is thrown across the two terminals of the fluorescent tube, thereby creating a big arc. Something like this can happen. But in order to avoid that, because it wants to keep going in this direction, you attach a diode like this. Attach a diode like this. Very important. For any inductive load could be a motor, it could be a relay coil, it could be anything. You attach this so that it gives a current path for the inductor to dissipate. Without that, this transistor would be busted. So that is why when you switch it off, this energy in the inductor manifests as it behaves like a battery, and it drives a current like this. That is why during switching off, when I switch it off, this LED glows. That this is the red LED in question. Okay, this is the red LED in question. So now last thing I would like to show you before going, the voltage spike during switching off, and how this diode, also known as a snubber diode, also known as a freewheeling diode, helps in preventing that big voltage spike. So just give me a minute, let me set up the oscilloscope again. Yeah, so let me take channel 1. Channel 1 taken, and let me connect it. Oh, so basically I'm just connecting the probe across the ends of the relay, nothing else. I'm just connecting it across the ends of the relay. And so let me turn on the power supply. Okay, so I need to go into trigger mode because I need to capture only the single waveform. I don't need continuous capturing, but even with continuous capturing we should be able to get. Okay, so let's just magnify the voltage. Perhaps it is too much magnification. So let me go into trigger mode. Go into a single measurement, and where is the trigger? The trigger level is at, maybe we need to put it down to.
Sir, what were you pressing?
Where did I press?
Sir, some button.
For this trigger mode, you mean?
No, sir, like the wave was coming, right? Like.
Yeah, I was switching on and off. I was simply switching
Okay.
on of the circuit. The same circuit. I am just scoping the voltage at the legs of the relay primary. And I will now remove the diode. simply remove the leg on the diode. Okay, I am not able to trigger it, so let me reduce the trigger level. Let's go to single mode. I will just make the signal go to base level. So right now it's at 0. When you press it, you get 10 volts at the coil end. When you let it go, you get 0 volts. But there you saw the big spike. So let's go to single mode and trigger. It is rising trigger. So let me go to the trigger menu. Where is the trigger menu? I cannot see inside darkness. Okay. Oh, trigger menu. So it's a rising trigger, as you can see. I mean, I don't know whether you'll be able to. But where is the waveform? Ah, there it is. So it has measured for us the waveform. So now I need to just change the time divisions, and when you magnify, you see when you're switching off, the pulse really goes down. Can you see that? So let me just take another reading. I will do another reading. Why is there such a lag? Is it not triggered to the... Okay, the oscilloscope has hanged. That's the first for me. Such things do happen. Okay, single run. Weird. Is there some bug? Nothing is responding. Okay, let me just turn it on and off. Maybe there's a bug. So these are all, this is not analog anymore, so these are all digital things. So let me just go to non-single mode. So we should have the trace. Oh, maybe the trace was too slow, was it? Okay. I don't know whether you're able to see this big spike. Switch it on. Big spike. You saw? On,
Yes.
off. There's a big spike.
Yes.
Now let me just connect the LED in line. So that LED is basically the snubber diode. Okay. The LED is basically the snubber diode. So I've connected the LED. You saw how much it has reduced? You see it? It has reduced significantly. Is it, I mean, were you able to tell the difference? Practically very little kickback. Now let me just remove the diode again. I've removed the diode. Massive spike. You saw? Massive spike. The voltage going below. Okay. For some reason I was not able to do the triggering. It doesn't come. In fact, let me give it a falling trigger. It should work. I mean, source channel 1, okay, and slope should be a falling trigger, okay, and where is the trigger level? So we can keep the falling trigger to maybe a volt. So let's see. The time division is a little fast. There you go. So now the trigger menu is working. So let me just adjust this. So now we can easily see. So this is with the diode in place. It goes from high, then it makes a negative peak and then it goes to 0. But this is with the diode removed. Okay, let's do another reading. So to do another reading, what you should do is you should click on run stop. It gets rid of the old trace. Then now it's ready to make another measurement. So now it's done the measurement. So you can see the spike goes very well below the limit. So let us do another measurement. So we click on run. We again do this and stop. So you get a massive spike. That spike is several orders of magnitudes. Okay, several orders of magnitude. Well, not several orders. It's an order of magnitude larger, the voltage. Now let me connect the LED in line. Let me connect the LED in line. Let me get rid of this trace. So I'm gonna click on run and now on off. Okay. So it's not triggered. Maybe the trigger voltage should be a bit high. Yeah. So now you see, in going from the 10 volts to 0, it's not doing such a massive jump in the reverse voltage. You see this? And I've shown you enough times, so I hope it is clear why that snubber diode is required. Okay. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna run stop. There you go. Now I'm gonna remove the diode again just for good old time's sake. Remove massive spike. Okay. So for inductive loads, you really need to take into consideration this. I mean, we are out of time. There is something else I would have liked to discuss, which is the opto interrupter, but we can do it in the next week, in the beginning of the next week. Okay. So anything anyone wants to ask?
Sir, what will be the structure for this lab? Like what reports and all do we have to submit?
Yeah, so the TS will mail everyone about that. But basically, for the lab, see, I mean, no one could come to the lab, so I don't expect you to like get readings out of thin air. So I will ask you to write certain things what you learned, and main will be some examination. Main has to be some kind of some kind of an exam. Apart from that, I will give you some term work like whatever you have learned, try to implement it. But what see, the switching and all is one part. The different switching, the last part, which is the opto interrupter, that is widely used for many places where you want to incorporate mechanical movement with electrical like signals and all this. So that would have been nice, but anyway, we can do it next time. So next time we will do that, and we will look into maybe op amps or something like that. So let's see. Let's take it on a week by week basis. It's difficult for me to manage like this. So if next week also there is lockdown, then it will be very challenging. So many circuits at home. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed this. Whatever we did.
Sir, what camera were you using? Is it GoPro?
No, no. This is a very cheap webcam.
Then does it have wide angle?
Yeah, it has fisheye.
Okay.
But does it have fisheye correction? That's what I mean. So it doesn't have any fisheye correction. There is a button. I mean, I don't think it's of any use. It's a very cheap Zebronics thing. LED I came to know.
It doesn't have that correction. I thought it's.
One has to do that in post. Okay, so I hope everyone learned something today. At least did everyone enjoy?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We enjoyed, sir.
That is more important. Not become a very tedious task to sit through the class. It should be always it should keep you on your toes and me on my toes as well.
I wish it was offline.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, are there any chances of happening this offline?
No idea, man. I have no idea. So all we can do is hope. But whenever it gets open, you can come to the lab and do it. See, obviously it takes time. So I mean, you need to set up things, you need to look at things, then suddenly the oscilloscope freezes, this happens, that happens. So you have to give it some time. Hopefully you will pick it up. You're in your second year. No problem. Okay, so next week we will do our thing. Let me see what I've put down for next week at least on my PC. Mm, So we've covered, yeah, so next time we will do operational amplifier, using an operational amplifier as an amplifier, comparator, integrator, differentiator. Okay, so next week this is going to be our agenda. Okay, and apart from this opto interrupter that we missed today. All right. So then after that, if we are able to get the circuit ready, then how to use a combination of this amplifier, comparator, integrator, blah blah blah, in the form of a PID control. Then the week next to that, we will use a 555 pulse generator and drive a DC motor, and we will see how to drive stepper motors and all these things. And all the assignments will be like you trying to incorporate into a mechatronics device. Like typically these motors are used in conjunction with mechanisms. So you must have a sensor to see whether a mechanism is in its correct position or not, whether it has gone too far, things like that. Okay? Do you comprehend? Alright then, so let's call it a day. You can have a good evening. And I'll meet some of you guys tomorrow for thermodynamics.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you, sir.
everyone else I can meet you on Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Thank you, sir.
Alright, bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
So just stop the recording so that it gets saved.
Oh, it is. I mean, if I were